Garrett or Rich?
It's recording.
We started. Good to go.
All right, it's 1:30, and Gary, what's up next?
Yes, we're still on June 23rd, 2020. All commissioners are present. We are resuming the issues list. And that is, the next topic is the Electeds and Black Community Members Protest Response Meeting, sponsored by Join, a housing nonprofit in Portland, for Black community leaders, as well as elected officials from Clackamas, Multnomah, Washington counties, the city of Portland, Metro regional government, and state legislators, including the governor, have been on these calls for 2 weeks now. This is an opportunity for you to brief each other and prepare for what I had heard the last meeting is this Friday. So this is a chance for you to talk about what you've heard, and if you have any guidance going forward of what you'd like to do.
So,
Paul, did you want to start, or do you want me to start? You were going to start last time.
Well, yeah, like if you want me to review what I had mentioned earlier, I'll just do that and then hand it over to Sonia so she can fill in the blanks or any gaps. So, you know, I listened in last week solely and for the purpose, and just paid very, very close attention. They have a lot of legislative ask, and they also have a lot of ask I thought that were more the responsibility of Portland per se, or directed towards Portland. And there were some for the local governments, but we have not met as a county. We did not take those asks or have a work session in order to be effective. And we're going to have to do that. Absent that, I'm happy to continue to, listen. I from the beginning thought it would be a listening and learning opportunity and session, and some dialogue. And it really has been more about an ask, or asked plural, to again all levels of government to make some changes. So it's kind of been prescribed. Some of these things are kind of prescribed, and with opportunity to even add for others. If Gary Schmidt, Administrator Schmidt's correct, and Friday's the last meeting, then I guess we stand ill prepared actually to, absent having a work session, to go into the next meeting with any direction from Clackamas County. Sonia, you want to add?
Gary, this Friday's the last meeting? I don't know about this.
So I attended the first 2 meetings, and both times I heard them say these are 3 meetings total, and 2 have already occurred. So I'm only basing on what I heard orally at both the 2 meetings I attended.
Okay, so I don't know why I think this, but I'm thinking they're going to go on for a while. Paul, what do you know?
Like I mentioned, I don't know anything more than that. I had called up Katrina, spoke to her last week, and about the public meetings thing and our opportunity to get engaged as a board, and some of the difficulties with that, and my focus on some of our resolution, particularly the therefores, and one of them being land use and transportation policy issues, which I raised at the very first meeting. So I know there's a number of things that are well-intended policy corrections, but I don't know. Again, a lot of them are going to be grappled with at the legislative level, and so yeah, I thought they would go on too, but I never heard that, and I never got clarity from Katrina as to that there would be really any kind of programming or agenda in subsequent weeks to come. So I don't know that there's any path. So Gary could be absolutely correct on what he heard, and that could be the intention, that it's only this 1 meeting left.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, everything Paul says is good background. I saw the materials before the meeting, and I reached out to Paul and said, hey, Paul, you better look at this before, because I don't think we're ready to really weigh in on this. So he's absolutely correct. We were not ready to weigh in any formal way. But some of their topics were, they wanted to tie public elected officials to certain accountability measures. And one is to divest from public safety. And I told them that we just completed our budget, that we did reduce the sheriff's budget by $2 million, but it wasn't in an effort to divest. It was in our budgetary process of cutting our expenses. And then there were some other things on the spreadsheet, and I believe everybody has these materials so you can look over them. But one was to make sure that the sheriff is complying with the laws around ICE and enforcements, and basically that's the sheriff's purview. And as far as we know, he's following all laws. Other things about let's see. Oh, a duty to intervene protocol to stop excessive force. And I honestly don't know exactly what that means from their perspective. And so my only comment was that I was coordinating individually as a person, not through our commission, with the People of Color Caucus at the legislature with Mark Meek, Janelle Bynum, just to have discussions about these and have input. So that's kind of where we're at. Chair Bernard had made some comment about needing some change in the first meeting about some potential changes in state law regarding budgeting for public safety, and that got put on the list. His name is alongside that. I told the group that I wasn't able to speak to that. So I've told Katrina, they did an update to their spreadsheet. I let her know some things that I want to clarify. I'd sent that off to her. I don't really know. I've been really clear. I also had a follow-up call with Katrina, and I said, well, first of all, I had the same understanding that Paul did, that this was to listen. So the very first meeting, I told Katrina, I said, I encouraged all my commissioners to join because I thought it was going to be an informative thing, just listen, and then it ended up being more action. So it immediately made us feel so uncomfortable. Really appreciate, Brenda, thank you so much for being the meetings law police for us. Really thankful for that. And it's helped me have that conversation with Katrina just about what does it take to have change? It's kind of like, you know what, maybe we need to reconsider and let us notice these meetings so that we can do this in a more open format. Because if you want to affect change with all these local governments, we have rules and we can't just participate. And I can tell you, Paul and I can sit here and listen, but unless our commission is engaged, we're not going to have the kind of input and buy-in that you're looking for on these issues. So she said, oh, well, she asked some questions about, well, what does it really mean to be noticed and this and that? And so we talked about that. She was going to take it back to her group to have them reconsider. Another idea that I had that I've been toying with, I can't remember who I talked to. Maybe it was Paul. I think it was Paul. That I thought, well, maybe District 8 could be a place where the 3 counties could have an open, public, transparent conversation about these issues in a way that would be productive. I honestly think if we're looking at systems change, we got to work at it as a system. It's not going to be certain commissioners sitting at a table. When with that, I would suggest that if this isn't ongoing, that Paul and I rotate and then 2 other commissioners go on, and then we keep doing it. Because
I'm okay with you guys doing it.
Yeah, I don't
have a problem.
I think it would be one of those meetings that might be good for a rotation. Just to, because it is pretty interesting. Katrina gave an amazing opening. I'm sure Paul would agree, and Gary was on there, and Brenda was on there, and I just wanted to remember everything she said, and I gave Brenda a text and said, hey, by chance, did you capture that in the notes? And she's like, no, I'm putting down action items. It's like, darn it, because it was such a good, so I think it would be good for everyone to hear those things. I'm happy to step aside and have someone else join. I think they're valuable, they're insightful, learn a lot, and it might be good to rotate. That's my only thought.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's any direction for us for this Friday. I don't know what's on the agenda. Is there an agenda? I have not seen it.
No.
So maybe what we could do, Gary, yourself or staff could maybe get a hold of Katrina and see if indeed this Friday is the last meeting. And if so, then maybe we're just going to be attending and listening and then it's done. And I guess, if we're going to play an active role in this, we're going to have a better idea of the agenda and the things that are being considered so that we can schedule it as a board and a work session if we're actually going to play a role in feeding into this. So agree with everything that Sonia just said. But again, absent us rolling up our sleeves, and I shared that with Katrina, I go, we're going to have to, and Sonia as well on Friday, that we're really going to have to roll up our sleeves and take the time out as a board to go over all these things, because some of these things are pretty hefty issues, right? They're not simple at the local level, because we're the boots on the ground, so to speak, to implement that. And we also need to do some of those things in concert with the sheriff's department, right? We can't do that alone. So there's a lot more work to this in order to do it effectively. And so that's my suggestion, maybe is confirm that Friday's the last one. If so, then I guess we just weren't queued up enough in the first place to.
Well, can't we just get a list of what their asks are and then we make that a work session? Or pieces, it may sound like we may have to have more than one work session.
If we do it before now on Friday, yes.
Yeah.
No, Martha, I listed them all out there, those 4 things that were
Right.
on our spreadsheet.
Okay,
Ken?
so why don't we just,
Well, if this is going to be ongoing, I would like to rotate in.
okay,
I do have some concerns about how this is done and what tools law enforcement has or does not have available to them. There are some behaviors that I think we're all on the same page that are absolutely that absolutely need to be dealt with. No question about that. But there's some other things that this expanded to that I have some concerns about. And in general terms, what I will say is that if you remove non-lethal and non-physical confrontation tools away from law enforcement in a large gathering situation that's threatening to get out of control or is in fact out of control, what you leave law enforcement with is an untenable situation. So I'm very concerned that somehow or another non-lethal methods are removed from their control. Now, does that maybe require additional oversight so that they're not abused also? It may well require that. I don't know. But I am concerned about that because I don't want people injured because they got hit with a billy club or got shot. And that concerns me if non-lethal tools are removed from their ability to control a crowd, not a normal, respectful protest where people are not out of control. But when it starts to get out of control, like we have seen, that's a whole other situation. And I don't think anybody sitting here wants anybody to be killed or severely injured by being hit. I can tell you right now, you ever get hit by a billy club, you will never forget it. It hurts. And it breaks bones. And I'd much rather get hit with some CS gas, which is very uncomfortable, than I would have my arm broken by a billy club. And that's just one little example. So I think we need to be very careful how we go forward with addressing these issues. And believe me, I don't believe that certain behaviors that I've seen are appropriate on any human being. So that's not, I'm not belittling what we have seen and how important it is to address it. And I'll stop there.
All right. So shall we move on to the next item?
We have Sonia with her hand raised, Chair.
Yeah, I just have one thing that I might want to mention. We've been briefed, I thought, pretty well from Chris Lyons, who let us know what the People of Color Caucus is doing at the legislature. We all got an email. I took that email, I forwarded it to Under Sheriff Brandenburg to say, what do you think about these? Would really like to know your input. And she provided some good input that looked like good for law enforcement. So I wanted to make sure I didn't get out of the consensus lane, basically. But we could, as a commission, Gary, you'd have to tell us what the time frame is. I think they're having public hearings like today on that package of legislation. I don't know if we have time to support it officially, but we could, if we wanted to, take some action on those issues. I think what is being proposed this session, as outlined by Chris Lyons, they're really reasonable measures. They've got a lot of consensus, and there's things that we could support as a commission if we wanted to. I don't know if everybody knows what they are.
My understanding was it's a one-day session tomorrow, in which case there's no time for you to really weigh in, but I need to clarify that. Trent, I see Trent is in the attendees list. Let's put him on the spot, Trent, and bring him in, please. Sorry, Trent, I'm gonna ask for your help on the timing, because if it's just tomorrow, it's too late, but if it's not, unless you want to make a statement right now. So we'll see what Trent has to say. Poor Trent, putting you on the spot, Trent. Sorry, that's what you get for attending, but thank you for attending.
Happy to help out. Yes, it is a one-day session tomorrow, and the timeline is tight. And I think what Commissioner Fisher is proposing has a lot of merit. Maybe what would be manageable right now is to send a letter to the Clackamas County Caucus or some sort of statement to the Clackamas County Caucus. It might not have to be a letter. That wouldn't necessarily be something that shows up on the record tomorrow, but it would let our caucus know where our position is as they consider these discussions tomorrow. And then that's a little different of an approach, but it might be something that we could turn around today or early tomorrow morning before they walk into some of those meetings.
Yeah, I really like that idea, Trent, mostly because Mark Meek and Janelle Bynum, our Clackamas County legislators, have been taking the lead on this. And I know for me as a commissioner, they've been amazing at communicating and sharing what's happening. And I would like to offer my support for their efforts for sure. So I guess I'll make a motion if I can get a second that we do what Trent suggests and let them know that we're supportive of the agenda for the People of Color Caucus for this short session.
So what's the agenda?
Yeah, what is the agenda?
This.
Trent can probably list it better. Chris put it in a good email. It affects arbitration, independent investigations, and chokeholds, I believe. No chokeholds. Is that right, Trent? Did I miss one?
He's looking.
I'm looking for it now.
You can call us back at 972-871-8000 and take an option.
Hey, Ken, we hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Chris did email the board this, but it's been a while. So Trent, are you able to find it?
I'm sorry, I have a lot of emails. It's not coming up on the surface. If you have access to it now, I would appreciate the support to pull it up.
Okay, actually, I got it. I'm just going to read it. The People of Color Caucus of the Oregon State Legislature calls for 3 policies. One is reintroducing a bill that prohibits an arbitrator from lessening disciplinary action against a police officer that has committed misconduct. Second, a new legislative concept that requires the Oregon Attorney General to investigate and prosecute any death or serious physical injury resulting from the use of force by a law enforcement officer. Third, a policy concept for the interim House Committee on Judiciary to reconvene a bipartisan work group to recommend changes to state laws regarding use of force with the intent that recommended changes would be moved forward to the 2021 session. Those are the 3 main policy priorities of the People of Color Caucus.
Well, I think they're great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody wants, I can read the email that Angie sent to me, if that would make anybody feel more comfortable.
Martha, you're.
That would be good. Okay.
It would be good if I read the email.
That would be good.
Okay.
Yes.
Wasn't sure what that was. All right. Hello. As presented here, and what was presented was Chris's email to us. I don't think these recommendations are bad for law enforcement. I'm not sure the DOJ would have the capacity to investigate statewide officer-involved deadly use force if the DOJ had the capacity and competency training needed to do these investigations, it would provide a level of transparency instead of the involved agency investigating their own incidents. I am sure smaller agencies with limited resources would be happy to have the help. So that was on the part about the investigations, outside investigations. Clackamas County is fortunate. Oh, and then she just talked more about how we work in Clackamas County with our DA's office and how things work specifically. Happy to forward this to everyone, but I don't think I need to read all of it.
Oh, do you want to support that or?
Well, no, I think we should support the people like Trent suggested. My motion would be that we support the People of Color Caucus in their agenda for this short time. Simple as that.
Second.
Martha, we can hear the pen.
Sorry.
It's like your hand is your picture.
There we go.
All
Do
right.
we have Brenda Polis?
So I want to ask if there's any further discussion. Ken has his hand up.
I was curious as to, and I don't know if they do this or not, but in a death situation or a crime that's alleged against an officer, I know that the district attorney who's leaving office always felt that his offices should do the investigation. On the surface, at least, that doesn't seem like a bad idea, especially if the state attorney general's office doesn't have the capacity to do it. So is there any thoughts on that?
Well, I can give you some thoughts. I do know that law enforcement often assist other entities, jurisdictions for investigations to keep some transparency. And I know that that occurs, but as far as how the statutes work around that, I don't know that there's a requirement. But I have had conversations with our district attorney-elect about situations where he has gone into another jurisdiction and investigated and how that worked, and that it's good to have some level of transparency. So that's what, an objectivity, and that's what this legislation is seeking to do.
And I think that's the whole point. When people investigate themselves, so to speak, there is not a level of trust by the public, unfortunately. And it's true with attorneys, it's true with doctors, I think it's true with law enforcement. And so having somebody outside doing an investigation, that principle is what we ought to be supporting.
Okay. Okay.
Paul?
Well, can someone either read them back or email me what those are again? I mean, you got 3 items there. We're all at a disadvantage of just hearing them, and I'm a visual and a audible person, so it's nice to have them both. But if we're making a motion on something as significant as this, I think it's imperative that we all have something in front of us.
I just emailed it to all of you. I just sent it to you.
Okay, I'm going to have to, Gary, can you forward it to my marthasrosecottage@gmail.com, because I'm using this Zoom, and I'll have to use my other email.
So I'd like to see all the emails you have on that cottage group, please.
No, everything. I figure any piece of equipment I own is all public record. So if people want to see my Nordstrom bill, they can. I don't
All
care.
right, so let's read those quickly, and we have a motion on the floor. So
Okay, let me see this.
So I'm still struggling to, oh, there it is. Okay.
Okay, I got it. Okay, great. I got it. State updates.
The first box where it says state updates.
See it, I see it. Tracy sent it to me.
Right.
Okay.
By the way, my other question in this whole thing is how do we get 15 cities to engage? Because many of them have their own police departments, and this can't just be the sheriff's department. So some thought needs to be given to that too as we go forward.
well, we have one day, it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. Don't
So
know that.
if I heard, did I hear correctly, Sonia, that you had a communication with Under Sheriff Brandenburg that
Which it was
he's okay
okay.
with these three?
Yes, you read the email.
Paul?
I said, did I hear you correctly in saying that you had either a conversation or an email exchange with Under Sheriff Brandenburg that she's okay with all three of these?
I asked her to weigh in and she said that it wouldn't be bad for law enforcement and some smaller agencies would welcome it. And she didn't caution me against it, but I'm happy to find that and forward it to everyone. I just
Well,
wanted to make sure before I entered into conversations with Janelle Bynum or Mark Meek, just to talk about it, that I understood her perspective because it's important.
Yeah. I just want to just say that, you know, on the level of detail, this is not my wheelhouse, right? So I don't have a deep background like I do in transportation on topics like this. So, so I'm going to kind of rely on others to opine and.
Well, at this point, they're legislative concepts. And in terms of the use of force, I'm glad they're pulling together a bipartisan work group to recommend changes to state laws, because that is something that I would say in one day they shouldn't really be. They really have to come up with a framework, what they really want, what they really need for the details. So as long as it's, like I said, if it's conceptual at this point, and our undersheriff, soon to be sheriff, seems okay with it, I would be willing to let them know at this point in time that we support it. But please, let's remember, as Paul says, the devil is in the details.
All right,
Okay.
so there's a motion on the floor. Brenda, why don't you go ahead and poll us?
Thank you. Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
Next item.
So do you trust staff to write the letter and send it? Because there's no time to bring it back to you to review it.
Yes,
Yes. Thank you, Trent.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this will be a statement to our own Clackamas County Caucus, our 20 legislators advocating or supporting the people of color's agenda walking into tomorrow's
Well, but-
session on these issues.
But I would say also the legislative concept.
concept.
And the concepts as well. So that's taking positions on the actual legislation itself more than, and that's a little bit more
Well,
than a position.
if it's conceptual, we're just saying you can do legislation, but wouldn't we reserve the right if we don't like anything? I mean, making legislation is like making sausage. But if that is, quite frankly, if that is what it might imply, then I would be willing just to leave it with what you said. So,
Very good, Chris and I will take it from here.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Great. So we're still back now to the joint meeting Friday. So staff is going to confirm if this Friday is the last meeting or not. If it's not, then there's time and we can bring it to a work session for you and any of the upcoming Tuesdays. If this is the last meeting, then whatever commissioners attend, you can rightfully say our board hasn't discussed this. So we cannot make commitments on behalf of the board.
Okay.
So we'll basically find out what is the status of these meetings and report back to you, and we can schedule a work session if you wish, if the meetings continue.
okay.
Sound good? Okay. Great. Let's move on. Business meeting agenda review for this Thursday, June 25th. It's your last business meeting of this fiscal year. You have a public hearing, a second reading of an ordinance amending the county code to add the county internal auditor language. You have a large consent agenda item, which at this point does include the IGA with TriMet in the Sheriff's Office that you discussed earlier today. And it still includes the FAPO contract renewal. And we're still, HR is working on that amendment you discussed earlier today. There also is an addition that we added to the agenda yesterday that you got a notice about. It is to extend our IGA with the state of Oregon regarding the funding for a future county courthouse. This is the agreement that allows us to keep the commitment of state funding that we've already received and that we can continue with our planning process. That expires June 30th. So we need to have this continue regardless of what your future decisions are in the courthouse. If this expires June 30th, that's not good. So this is an addition to your consent agenda to extend this IGA with the state for an additional year until June 30th, 2021. Just want to draw that to your attention.
Great.
If you do have any questions on the agenda, if you could let me know before Thursday, and staff will provide answers for you before then. All right. Moving on, we have an addition to the agenda this morning, and that is from Chair Bernard to discuss potentially naming Juneteenth as a county holiday. As you know, Juneteenth recognizes the day when the final slaves in the United States were freed in 1865, 155 years ago. Multnomah County, the city of Portland, and Metro Regional Government have all declared county or holidays as of this year for those jurisdictions. And the governor has announced that in the 2021 legislative session, she will call for a state holiday starting next year. But I'm sorry, Chair, I've given all your opening here, but I'm not going to discuss this here with you, commissioners, for the county.
And that's it. It does cost, what'd you say, about $800,000?
It's approximately, real quick numbers, about $800,000, which is the amount of money we pay every employee to work, to be paid for a holiday. So the question is, do you want to declare a county holiday for Juneteenth? This year has passed, of course, but it would be for next year. You have the authority to do that. As a county commission, you can declare any county holiday you wish outside of state and federal holidays. Stephen, please correct me if I said that wrong. It's thumbs up, so that's correct. So you have been receiving some requests from employees and community members, not a lot, but a few, asking, is the county going to declare Juneteenth a county holiday? So, go ahead.
Yeah, I had to actually wish we had thought of this before the holiday. So, I mean, is there interest in doing this? There isn't. I am interested.
Yeah, well, I'd say that why not, of course. And if it's all going to be a state holiday as well, it just seems that we're just in essence all aligning to recognize that same day. I'm all in.
Okay, let's make a motion. Somebody make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we add a holiday at Clackamas County of Juneteenth for the future paid holiday. Any other discussion?
Well, we should be able to find out from Gary. That's going to be an interesting budget issue, but oh well, we'll figure it out.
So can we, when it gets, are we at a conversation yet?
Yes, that's what I asked. Any further discussion?
Yeah, so let's talk about the budgetary thing, Gary. It's essentially, it's just like another day. I mean, as far as from a pay standpoint, but there's no productivity coming out of that day, right? So essentially, it's not really, doesn't change the budget. All it does is affect productivity, right?
That is correct. That is not an additional budget expense because you're already paying the employee for this day. It just means the employee would not be working. So yeah, exactly right, Commissioner. It's a productivity issue. I would say there would be probably a slight increase for those employees that were working that day in emergency services or CCOM. They would be paid holiday pay for that day, but I'd say the cost is minimal in relation to the county budget.
Yeah, so there's another angle of this and or opportunity, and that is that, you know, if there is some way the county can, on this day, if the county can actually somehow participate, or its employees and all of us participate in not a celebration per se, that's not the right word, but in a day of recognition and take some activity in remembrance of that whole cause, right? So it may be a day, it could be a day off of work per se, of the typical work, but it is something that there's an activity, it's an activity based that where we dedicate ourselves, make a commitment to ourselves that we do something. So is that different than simply making it a paid holiday? Because sometimes I think that some holidays, people don't really recognize what they mean or what they're about. It's just a day off. And I think that it would be advantageous, especially at this point in time in our nation's history, that we actually put some significance and meaning behind the day and commit ourselves to that. So it could be educational, it could be opportunity, it could not it's not necessarily a day off, possibly. I'm just throwing these ideas out there for, I think it needs to be meaningful.
Let's get rid of the 4th of July in exchange for the 4th of July. Just kidding. I don't know how you can put a requirement on our employees. Let's just say in celebration, do something to celebrate diversity.
I guess what I'm saying, instead of being a paid holiday, okay, that it is a special day in which we still gather at the county. We still do, but we are focusing the day on the remembrance and the importance of this particular day.
That's not the motion, but
You can have
I
a day,
understand.
you can have a day of service. Many organizations do this for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It is a paid holiday, but an organization sponsors a day of service. It's voluntary though, you can't require, but you ask employees if you're willing, we'll do a community service or some sort of a recognition activity in honor of the holiday. So we could do that, but it ultimately would be a paid county holiday, and it's
Right.
voluntary if the employee chose to do that.
right. That's all you can really do. Ken?
Yeah, there's one thing that we can do every time that we don't always do with some of our holidays, and that is repeat a resolution that we already have that recognizes that holiday and its history and its purpose, so that it doesn't just become routine. But the last meeting prior to the holiday, actually read our resolution that acknowledges the purpose of the holiday, to remind people what this is about. At the very least, I think we should do that. It is, it's been a long time coming is probably the best way to phrase it.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor, a second. Sonia, you're not Sonia. Brenda, would you please poll us?
Yes, thank you, but I did miss who made the motion.
I think 3 of us did.
Paul did, and then Ken seconded.
Martha.
Close
Stewart.
enough.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah, Martha did. Okay. I will poll now. So Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humberson,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, congratulations, we did a great thing.
So this will be effective June 2021, next year, correct? All right,
Yeah.
so Stephen reminds me you have to do a board order at a business meeting. So Stephen, can you help make that happen at the next business meeting?
Sure can.
Please, great.
Okay.
All right, thank you, commissioners. Finally, commissioner communications.
Who'd like to start? No one knows how to communicate, so. All right, so I'm gonna just go with Sonia first.
Oh, I feel like I've done a lot of communicating today.
Mhm.
And I don't have anything else to add. I feel like this is good, you guys. Our discussion for the topics that are before us allow us to share what work we've been doing and I think what's important. So I don't think I have anything else to share. If I come up with anything, I will let you know before we adjourn.
All right, so Martha, I'm just gonna move across the screen.
I don't have anything to add right now. I think it's been good discussions today, and I'm looking forward to hiring our EDI.
Okay, Paul?
Don't have much to add. I just wanted to kind of build on. I'm going to be crafting a letter and hopefully get it out
Okay.
today. It'll be a friendly letter to the governor, and basically just kind of requesting or clarifying what we were trying to convey, and then requesting specific clarity to kind of give our businesses and our employees some certainty. I think they need that. So that's what I'll be doing the rest of the day after our EDI session here.
Okay.
All right, so Ken?
Nothing to report. I just want to reiterate my thanks to Gary Schmidt and the EOC team for their speedy work on the outdoor movies, the drive-in movies at the fairgrounds. Very much appreciated. I've already conveyed this to Lori Bothwell. She's tickled to death, and I told her we all want to know when the very first one happens.
All right. And I'm going to say thank you, and we'll see you in like 20 minutes.
There's been a timing change on that. The session will not start until 2:50 p.m. The first interview is at 3, but I'll do a briefing for you at 2:50. So you have extra time now. But 2:50 p.m. Please be back.
And can we take a nap then? Is that okay?
Before then, yes.
And they're not interviews, just a reminder.
It's a meet
Yeah.
and greet, but I'll brief you there. Also, Caroline did find out about the joint meeting. Yes, this Friday is the last
Okay.
meeting.
I think we should stay consistent. I think it should be you, Sonia, and Paul. Just be consistent and be there.
All right. Well, we already said we're done. Now we're done. Let's go. Thank